The Mabinogion, Chapter 7. Pool Prince of Dived. Pool Prince of Dived was lord of the 7 cantrevs of Dived, and once upon a time he was at Narberth his chief palace, and he was minded to go and hunt, and the part of his dominions in which it pleased him to hunt was Glyn Couch. So he set forth from Narberth that night, and went as far as Elwyn Direwood. And that night he tarried there, and early on the morrow he rose and came to Glyn Couch, when he let loose the dogs in the wood, and sounded the horn and began the chase. And as he followed the dogs, he lost his companions. And whilst he listened to the hounds, he heard the cry of other hounds, a cry different from his own, and coming in the opposite direction. And he beheld a glade in the wood forming a level plain, and as his dogs came to the edge of the glade, he saw a stag before the other dogs. And lo, as it reached the middle of the glade, the dogs that followed the stag overtook it and brought it down. Then looked he at the color of the dogs, staying not to look at the stag, and of all the hounds that he had seen in the world, he had never seen any that were like unto these. For their hair was of a brilliant shining white, and their ears were red, and as the whiteness of their bodies shone, so did the redness of their ears glisten. And he came towards the dogs, and drove away those that had brought down the stag, and set his own dogs upon it. And as he was setting on his dogs, he saw a horseman coming towards him upon a large light grey steed, with a hunting horn round his neck, and clad in garments of grey woolen in the fashion of a hunting garb. And the horseman drew near and spoke unto him thus. Chieftain, said he, I know who thou art, and I greet thee not. Peradventure, said Pool, thou art of such dignity that thou shouldest not do so. Verily, answered he, it is not my dignity that prevents me. What is it then, O chieftain? Asked he. By heaven, it is by reason of thine own ignorance and want of courtesy. What discourtesy, chieftain, hast thou seen in me? Greater discourtesy saw I never in man, said he, than to drive away the dogs that were killing the stag and to set upon it thine own. This was discourteous, and though I may not be revenged upon thee, yet I declare to heaven that I will do thee more dishonor than the value of 100 stags. O chieftain, he replied, if I have done ill I will redeem thy friendship. How wilt thou redeem it? According as thy dignity may be, but I know not who thou art? A crowned king am I in the land whence I come. Lord, said he, may the day prosper with thee, and from what land comest thou? From Anwin. To, answered he, Around a king of Anwin am I. Lord, said he, how may I gain thy friendship? After this manner mayest thou, he said. There is a man whose dominions are opposite to mine, who is ever warring against me, and he is Havgon, a king of Anwin, and by ridding me of this oppression, which thou canst easily do, shalt thou gain my friendship. Gladly will I do this, said he. Show me how I may. I will show thee. Behold, thus it is thou mayest. I will make firm friendship with thee, and this will I do. I will send thee to Anwin in my stead, and I will give thee the fairest lady thou didst ever behold to be thy companion, and I will put my form and semblance upon thee, so that not a page of the chamber, nor an officer, nor any other man that has always followed me shall know that it is not I. And this shall be for the space of a year from tomorrow, and then we will meet in this place. Yes, said he. But when I shall have been there for the space of a year, by what means shall I discover him of whom thou speakest? 1 year from this night, he answered, is the time fixed between him and me that we should meet at the ford. Be thou there in my likeness, and with one stroke that thou givest him, he shall no longer live. And if he ask thee to give him another, give it not, how much soever he may entreat thee. For when I did so, he fought with me next day as well as ever before. Verily, said Pool. What shall I do concerning my kingdom? Said Araun. I will cause that no one in all thy dominions, neither man nor woman, shall know that I am not thou, and I will go there in thy stead. Gladly then, said Pool, will I set forward. Clear shall be thy path, and nothing shall detain thee, until thou come into my dominions, and I myself will be thy guide. So he conducted him until he came in sight of the palace and its dwellings. Behold, said he, the court and the kingdom in thy power. Enter the court, There is no one there who will know thee, and when thou sayest what service is done there, thou wilt know the customs of the court. So he went forward to the court, and when he came there, he beheld sleeping rooms and halls and chambers, and the most beautiful buildings ever seen. And he went into the hall to disarray, and there came youths and pages and disarrayed him, and all as they entered saluted him. And 2 knights came and drew his hunting dress from about him, and clothed him in a vesture of silk and gold. And the hall was prepared, and behold, he saw the household and the host enter in, and the host was the most comely and the best equipped that he had ever seen. And with them came in likewise the queen, who was the fairest woman that he had ever yet beheld. And she had on a yellow robe of shining satin, and they washed and went to the table and sat, the queen upon one side of him, and one who seemed to be an earl on the other side. And he began to speak with the queen, and he thought, from her speech, that she was the seemliest and most noble lady of converse and of cheer that ever was. And they partook of meat and drink, with songs and with feasting. And of all the courts upon the earth, behold, this was the best supplied with food and drink, and vessels of gold and royal jewels. And the year he spent in hunting and minstrelsy and feasting and diversions, and discourse with his companions until the night that was fixed for the conflict. And when that night came, it was remembered even by those who lived in the furthest part of his dominions. And he went to the meeting, and the nobles of the kingdom with him. And when he came to the ford, a knight arose and spake thus. Lords, said he, listen well. It is between 2 kings that this meeting is, and between them only. Each claimeth of the other his land and territory. And do all of you stand aside and leave the fight to be between them. Thereupon the 2 kings approached each other in the middle of the ford, and encountered, and at the first thrust, the man who was in the stead of Araun struck Havgon on the center of the boss of his shield, so that it was cloven in twain, and his armor was broken, and Havgon himself was borne to the ground in arms and a spear's length over the crupper of his horse, and he received a deadly blow. O chieftain, said Havgon, what right hast thou to cause my death? I was not injuring thee in anything, and I know not wherefore thou wouldest slay me. But, for the love of heaven, since thou hast begun to slay me, complete thy work. Ah, chieftain, he replied, I may yet repent doing that unto thee. Slay thee who may, I will not do so. My trusty lords, said Havgon, bear me hence, my death has come. I shall be no more able to uphold you. My nobles, also said he who was in the semblance of Araun, take counsel and know who ought to be my subjects. Lord, said the nobles, all should be, for there is no king over the whole of Anwin but thee. Yes, he replied, it is right that he who comes humbly should be received graciously, but he that doth not come with obedience shall be compelled by the force of swords. And thereupon he received the homage of the men, and he began to conquer the country. And the next day by noon the 2 kingdoms were in his power. And thereupon he went to keep his tryst, and came to Glyn Cooch. And when he came there, the king of Anwin was there to meet him, and each of them was rejoiced to see the other. Verily, said Araun, may heaven reward thee for thy friendship towards me. I have heard of it. When thou comest thyself to thy dominions, said he, thou wilt see that which I have done for thee. Whatever thou hast done for me, may heaven repay it thee. Then Araun gave to Pool Prince of Dived his proper form and semblance, and he himself took his own. And Araun set forth towards the court of Anwin, and he was rejoiced when he beheld his hosts and his household, whom he had not seen so long. But they had not known of his absence, and wondered no more at his coming than usual. And that day was spent in joy and merriment. And he sat and conversed with his wife and his nobles. And when it was time for them rather to sleep than to carouse, they went to rest. Pool Prince of Dived came likewise to his country and dominions, and began to inquire of the nobles of the land, how his rule had been during the past year, compared with what it had been before. Lord, said they, thy wisdom was never so great, and thou wast never so kind or so free in bestowing thy gifts, and thy justice was never more worthily seen than in this year. By heaven, said he, for all the good you have enjoyed, you should thank him who hath been with you. For behold, thus hath this matter been. And thereupon Pool related the whole unto them. Verily, Lord, said they, render thanks unto heaven that thou hast such a fellowship, and withhold not from us the rule which we have enjoyed for this year past. I take heaven to witness that I will not withhold it, answered Poole. And thenceforth they made strong the friendship that was between them, and each sent unto the other horses, and greyhounds, and hawks, and all such jewels as they thought would be pleasing to each other. And by reason of his having dwelt that year in Anwen, and having ruled there so prosperously, and united the two kingdoms in one day by his valor and prowess, he lost the name of Poole Prince of Dived, and was called Poole Chief of Anwen from that time forward. Once upon a time, Poole was at Narberth his chief palace, where a feast had been prepared for him, and with him was a great host of men. And after the first meal, Poole arose to walk, and he went to the top of a mound that was above the palace, and was called Gorsedd Arberth. Lord, said one of the court, it is peculiar to the mound that whosoever sits upon it cannot go thence, without either receiving wounds or blows, or else seeing a wonder. I fear not to receive wounds and blows in the midst of such a host as this, but as to the wonder, gladly would I see it. I will go therefore and sit upon the mound. And upon the mound he sat. And while he sat there, they saw a lady, on a pure white horse of large size, with a garment of shining gold around her, coming along the highway that led from the mound. And the horse seemed to move at a slow and even pace, and to be coming up towards the mound. My men, said Poole, is there any among you who knows yonder lady? There is not, Lord, said they. Go one of you and meet her, that we may know who she is. And one of them arose, and as he came upon the road to meet her, she passed by, and he followed as fast as he could, being on foot. And the greater was his speed, the further was she from him. And when he saw that it profited him nothing to follow her, he returned to Poole and said unto him, Lord, it is idle for any one in the world to follow her on foot. Verily, said Poole, go unto the palace, and take the fleetest horse that thou sayest, and go after her. And he took a horse and went forward. And he came to an open level plain, and put spurs to his horse. And the more he urged his horse, the further was she from him. Yet she held the same pace as at first. And his horse began to fail. And when his horse's feet failed him, he returned to the place where Poole was. Lord, said he, it will avail nothing for anyone to follow yonder lady. I know of no horse in these realms swifter than this, and it availed me not to pursue her. Of a truth, said Poole, there must be some illusion here. Let us go towards the palace. So to the palace they went, and they spent that day. And the next day they arose, and that also they spent until it was time to go to meat. And after the first meal, verily, said Poole, we will go the same party as yesterday to the top of the mound. And do thou, said he to one of his young men, take the swiftest horse that thou knowest in the field. And thus did the young man. And they went towards the mound, taking the horse with them. And as they were sitting down they beheld the lady on the same horse, and in the same apparel, coming along the same road. Behold, said Poole, here is the lady of yesterday. Make ready, youth, to learn who she is. My lord, said he, that will I gladly do. And thereupon the lady came opposite to them. So the youth mounted his horse, and before he had settled himself in his saddle, she passed by, and there was a clear space between them. But her speed was no greater than it had been the day before. Then he put his horse into an amble, and thought that notwithstanding the gentle pace at which his horse went, he should soon overtake her. But this availed him not, so he gave his horse the reins. And still he came no nearer to her than when he went at a foot's pace. And the more he urged his horse, the further was she from him. Yet she rode not faster than before. When he saw that it availed not to follow her, he returned to the place where Poole was. Lord, said he, the horse can no more than thou hast seen. I see indeed that it avails not that anyone should follow her. And by heaven, said he, she must needs have an errand to someone in this plain, if her haste would allow her to declare it. Let us go back to the palace. And to the palace they went, and they spent that night in songs and feasting, as it pleased them. And the next day they amused themselves until it was time to go to meat. And when meat was ended, Poole said, Where are the hosts that went yesterday and the day before to the top of the mound? Behold, Lord, we are here, said they. Let us go, said he. To the mound, to sit there. And do thou, said he to the page who tended his horse, saddle my horse well, and hasten with him to the road, and bring also my spurs with thee. And the youth did thus. And they went and sat upon the mound. And ere they had been there but a short time, they beheld the lady coming by the same road, and in the same manner and at the same pace. Young man, said Poole, I see the lady coming, give me my horse. And no sooner had he mounted his horse than she passed him. And he turned after her and followed her. And he let his horse go bounding playfully, and thought that at the second step or the third he should come up with her. But he came no nearer to her than at first. Then he urged his horse to his utmost speed, yet he found that it availed nothing to follow her. Then said Poole, O maiden, for the sake of him whom thou best lovest, stay for me. I will stay gladly, said she. And it were better for thy horse hadst thou asked it long since. So the maiden stopped, and she threw back that part of her headdress which covered her face. And she fixed her eyes upon him and began to talk with him. Lady, asked he, whence comest thou, and whereunto dost thou journey? I journey on mine own errand, said she, and right glad am I to see thee. My greeting be unto thee, said he. Then he thought that the beauty of all the maidens, and all the ladies that he had ever seen, was as nothing compared to her beauty. Lady, he said, wilt thou tell me aught concerning thy purpose? I will tell thee, said she. My chief quest was to seek thee. Behold, said Poole, this is to me the most pleasing quest on which thou couldst have come, and wilt thou tell me who thou art? I will tell thee, lord, said she. I am Rhiannon, the daughter of Hevid Hen, and they sought to give me to a husband against my will. But no husband would I have, and that because of my love for thee, neither will I yet have one unless thou reject me. And hither have I come to hear thy answer. By heaven, said Poole, behold this is my answer. If I might choose among all the ladies and damsels in the world, thee would I choose. Verily, said she, if thou art thus minded, make a pledge to meet me ere I am given to another. The sooner I may do so, the more pleasing will it be unto me, said Poole. And wheresoever thou wilt, there will I meet with thee. I will that thou meet me this day 12-month at the palace of Hevid. And I will cause a feast to be prepared, so that it be ready against thou come. Gladly, said he, will I keep this tryst. Lord, said she, remain in health, and be mindful that thou keep thy promise. And now I will go hence. So they parted, and he went back to his hosts and to them of his household. And whatsoever questions they asked him respecting the damsel, he always turned the discourse upon other matters. And when a year from that time was gone, he caused 100 knights to equip themselves and to go with him to the palace of Hevid Hen. And he came to the palace, and there was great joy concerning him, with much concourse of people and great rejoicing, and vast preparations for his coming. And the whole court was placed under his orders. And the hall was garnished, and they went to meat, and thus did they sit. Hevid Hen was on one side of Poole, and Rhiannon on the other, and all the rest according to their rank. And they ate and feasted and talked one with another, and at the beginning of the carousal after the meat, there entered a tall auburn-haired youth of royal bearing, clothed in a garment of satin. And when he came into the hall, he saluted Poole and his companions. The greeting of heaven be unto thee, my soul, said Poole. Come thou and sit down. Nay, said he, a suitor am I, and I will do mine errand. Do so willingly, said Poole. Lord, said he, my errand is unto thee, and it is to crave a boon of thee that I come. What boon soever thou mayest ask of me, as far as I am able thou shalt have. Ah, said Rhiannon, wherefore didst thou give that answer? Has he not given it before the presence of these nobles? Asked the youth. My soul, said Poole, what is the boon thou askest? The lady whom best I love is to be thy bride this night. I come to ask her of thee, with the feast and the banquet that are in this place. And Poole was silent because of the answer which he had given. Be silent as long as thou wilt, said Rhiannon. Never did man make worse use of his wits than thou hast done. Lady, said he, I knew not who he was. "Behold, this is the man to whom they would have given me against my will," said she. "And he is Gwal the son of Clud, a man of great power and wealth. And because of the word thou hast spoken, bestow me upon him lest shame befall thee." "Lady," said he, "I understand not thine answer. Never can I do as thou sayest." "Bestow me upon him," said she, "and I will cause that I shall never be his." "By what means will that be?" asked Pool. "In thy hand will I give thee a small bag," said she. "See that thou keep it well, and he will ask of thee the banquet, and the feast, and the preparations which are not in thy power. Unto the hosts and the household will I give the feast, and such will be thy answer respecting this. And as concerns myself, I will engage to become his bride this night 12-month. And at the end of the year be thou here," said she, "and bring this bag with thee, and let thy 100 nights be in the orchard up yonder. And when he is in the midst of joy and feasting, come thou in by thyself, clad in ragged garments, and holding thy bag in thy hand, and ask nothing but a bagful of food. And I will cause that if all the meat and liquor that are in these 7 cantrips were put into it, it would be no fuller than before. And after a great deal has been put therein, he will ask thee whether thy bag will ever be full. Say thou then that it never will, until a man of noble birth and of great wealth arise and press the food in the bag with both his feet, saying, Enough has been put therein. And I will cause him to go and tread down the food in the bag, and when he does so, turn thou the bag, so that he shall be up over his head in it, and then slip a knot upon the thongs of the bag. Let there be also a good bugle horn about thy neck, and as soon as thou hast bound him in the bag, wind thy horn, and let it be a signal between thee and thy knights. And when they hear the sound of the horn, let them come down upon the palace. Lord, said Gwal, it is meet that I have an answer to my request. As much of that thou hast asked as it is in my power to give, thou shalt have, replied Pool. My soul, said Rhiannon unto him. As for the feast and the banquet that are here, I have bestowed them upon the men of Dived, and the household and the warriors that are with us. These can I not suffer to be given to any. In a year from tonight a banquet shall be prepared for thee in this palace, that I may become thy bride. So Gwal went forth to his possessions, and Pool went also back to Dived. And they both spent that year until it was the time for the feast at the palace of Hevedhen. Then Gwal the son of Clud set out to the feast that was prepared for him, and he came to the palace, and was received there with rejoicing. Pool also, the chief of Anwin, came to the orchard with his 100 knights, as Rhiannon had commanded him, having the bag with him. And Pool was clad in coarse and ragged garments, and wore large clumsy old shoes upon his feet. And when he knew that the carousal after the meat had begun, he went towards the hall, and when he came into the hall, he saluted Gwal the son of Clud, and his company, both men and women. Heaven prosper thee, said Gwal, and the greeting of heaven be unto thee. Lord, said he, may heaven reward thee, I have an errand unto thee. Welcome be thine errand, and if thou ask of me that which is just, thou shalt have it gladly. It is fitting, answered he. I crave but from want, and the boon that I ask is to have this small bag that thou sayest filled with meat. A request within reason is this, said he, and gladly shalt thou have it. Bring him food. A great number of attendants arose and began to fill the bag, but for all that they put into it, it was no fuller than at first. My soul, said Gwal, will thy bag be ever full? It will not, I declare to heaven, said he. For all that may be put into it, unless one possessed of lands, and domains and treasure, shall arise and tread down with both his feet the food that is within the bag, and shall say, Enough has been put therein. Then said Rhiannon unto Gwal the son of Clud, Rise up quickly. I will willingly arise, said he. So he rose up and put his 2 feet into the bag. And Pool turned up the sides of the bag, so that Gwal was over his head in it. And he shut it up quickly and slipped a knot upon the thongs, and blew his horn. And thereupon behold his household came down upon the palace. And they seized all the host that had come with Gwal, and cast them into his own prison. And Pool threw off his rags, and his old shoes, and his tattered array. And as they came in, every one of Pool's knights struck a blow upon the bag, and asked, What is here? "A badger," said they. And in this manner they played, each of them striking the bag, either with his foot or with a staff. And thus played they with the bag. Every one as he came in asked, "What game are you playing at thus?" "The game of badger in the bag," said they. And then was the game of badger in the bag first played. "Lord," said the man in the bag, "if thou wouldest but hear me, I merit not to be slain in a bag." Said Hevid Hen, "Lord, he speaks truth. It were fitting that thou listen to him, for he deserves not this." "Verily," said Pool, "I will do thy counsel concerning him." "Behold, this is my counsel then," said Rhiannon. "Thou art now in a position in which it behoves thee to satisfy suitors and minstrels. Let him give unto them in thy stead, and take a pledge from him that he will never seek to revenge that which has been done to him. And this will be punishment enough." "I will do this gladly," said the man in the bag. "And gladly will I accept it," said Pool, "since it is the counsel of Hevid and Rhiannon." "Such then is our counsel," answered they. "I accept it," said Pool. "Seek thyself sureties." "We will be for him," said Hevid, "until his men be free to answer for him." And upon this he was let out of the bag, and his liegemen were liberated. "Demand now of Gwal his sureties," said Hevid. "We know which should be taken for him." And Hevid numbered the sureties. Said Gwal, "Do thou thyself draw up the covenant." "It will suffice me that it be as Rhiannon said," answered Pool. So unto that covenant were the sureties pledged. "Verily, Lord," said Gwal, "I am greatly hurt, and I have many bruises. I have need to be anointed. With thy leave I will go forth. I will leave nobles in my stead, to answer for me in all that thou shalt require." "Willingly," said Pool, "mayest thou do thus." So Gwal went towards his own possessions. And the hall was set in order for Pool and the men of his host, and for them also of the palace, and they went to the tables and sat down. And as they had sat that time 12 months, so sat they that night. And they ate, and feasted, and spent the night in mirth and tranquillity. And the time came that they should sleep, and Pool and Rhiannon went to their chamber. And next morning at the break of day, "My lord," said Rhiannon, "arise and begin to give thy gifts unto the minstrels. Refuse no one today that may claim thy bounty." "Thus shall it be gladly," said Pool, "both today and every day while the feast shall last." So Pool arose, and he caused silence to be proclaimed, and desired all the suitors and the minstrels to show and to point out what gifts were to their wish and desire. And this being done, the feast went on, and he denied no one while it lasted. And when the feast was ended, Pool said unto Hevid, "My lord, with thy permission I will set out for Dive tomorrow." "Certainly," said Hevid. "May heaven prosper thee. Fix also a time when Rhiannon may follow thee." "By heaven," said Pool, "we will go hence together." "Willest thou this, lord?" said Hevid. "Yes, by heaven," answered Pool. And the next day they set forward towards Dived, and journeyed to the palace of Narberth, where a feast was made ready for them. And there came to them great numbers of the chief men and the most noble ladies of the land. And of these there was none to whom Rhiannon did not give some rich gift, either a bracelet or a ring or a precious stone. And they ruled the land prosperously both that year and the next. And in the 3rd year the nobles of the land began to be sorrowful at seeing a man whom they loved so much, and who was moreover their lord and their foster brother, without an heir. And they came to him, and the place where they met was Preseliu in Dived. "Lord," said they, "we know that thou art not so young as some of the men of this country, and we fear that thou mayest not have an heir of the wife whom thou hast taken. Take therefore another wife of whom thou mayest have heirs. Thou canst not always continue with us, and though thou desire to remain as thou art, we will not suffer thee." "Truly," said Pool, "we have not long been joined together, and many things may yet befall. Grant me a year from this time, and for the space of a year we will abide together, and after that I will do according to your wishes." So they granted it, and before the end of a year a son was born unto him. And in Narberth was he born, and on the night that he was born, women were brought to watch the mother and the boy. And the women slept, as did also Rhiannon, the mother of the boy. And the number of the women that were brought into the chamber was 6. And they watched for a good portion of the night, and before midnight every one of them fell asleep, and towards break of day they awoke. And when they awoke, they looked where they had put the boy, and behold, he was not there. "Oh," said one of the women, "the boy is lost?" "Yes," said another, "and it will be small vengeance if we are burnt or put to death because of the child." Said one of the women, "Is there any counsel for us in the world in this matter?" "There is," answered another. "I offer you good counsel." "What is that?" asked they. "There is here a staghound bitch, and she has a litter of whelps. Let us kill some of the cubs, and rub the blood on the face and hands of Rhiannon, and lay the bones before her, and assert that she herself hath devoured her son, and she alone will not be able to gainsay us 6. And according to this counsel it was settled. And towards morning Rhiannon awoke, and she said, "Women, where is my son?" "Lady," said they, "ask us not concerning thy son. We have not but the blows and the bruises we got by struggling with thee, and of a truth we never saw any woman so violent as thou, for it was of no avail to contend with thee. Hast thou not thyself devoured thy son? Claim him not therefore of us." "For pity's sake," said Rhiannon, "the Lord God knows all things. Charge me not falsely. If you tell me this from fear, I assert before heaven that I will defend you." "Truly," said they, "we would not bring evil on ourselves for anyone in the world." "For pity's sake," said Rhiannon, "you will receive no evil by telling the truth." But for all her words, whether fair or harsh, she received but the same answer from the women. And Poole the chief of Anwen arose, and his household and his hosts. And this occurrence could not be concealed, but the story went forth throughout the land, and all the nobles heard it. Then the nobles came to Poole, and besought him to put away his wife, because of the great crime which she had done. But Poole answered them, that they had no cause wherefore they might ask him to put away his wife, save for her having no children. But children has she now had, therefore will I not put her away. If she has done wrong, let her do penance for it. So Rhiannon sent for the teachers and the wise men, and as she preferred doing penance to contending with the women, she took upon her a penance. And the penance that was imposed upon her was, that she should remain in that palace of Narberth until the end of 7 years, and that she should sit every day near unto a horseblock that was without the gate, and that she should relate the story to all who should come there, whom she might suppose not to know it already, and that she should offer the guests and strangers, if they would permit her, to carry them upon her back into the palace. But it rarely happened that any would permit, and thus did she spend part of the year. Now at that time Turnian Twryv Vliant was lord of Gwent is Coed, and he was the best man in the world. And unto his house there belonged a mare, than which neither mare nor horse in the kingdom was more beautiful. And on the night of every 1st of May she foaled, and no one ever knew what became of the colt. And one night Turnian talked with his wife. "Wife," said he, "it is very simple of us that our mare should foal every year, and that we should have none of her colts." "What can be done in the matter?" said she. "This is the night of the 1st of May," said he. "The vengeance of heaven be upon me, if I learn not what it is that takes away the colts." So he caused the mare to be brought into a house, and he armed himself and began to watch that night. And in the beginning of the night, the mare foaled a large and beautiful colt, and it was standing up in the place. And Turnian rose up and looked at the size of the colt, and as he did so he heard a great tumult, and after the tumult behold a claw came through the window into the house, and it seized the colt by the mane. Then Turnian drew his sword, and struck off the arm at the elbow, so that portion of the arm together with the colt was in the house with him. And then did he hear a tumult and wailing, both at once. And he opened the door and rushed out in the direction of the noise, and he could not see the cause of the tumult because of the darkness of the night, but he rushed after it and followed it. Then he remembered that he had left the door open, and he returned. And at the door behold there was an infant boy in swaddling clothes, wrapped around in a mantle of satin. And he took up the boy, and behold he was very strong for the age that he was of. Then he shut the door, and went into the chamber where his wife was. "Lady," said he, "art thou sleeping?" "No, Lord," said she, "I was asleep, but as thou camest in I did awake. Behold, here is a boy for thee if thou wilt, said he, since thou hast never had one. My lord, said she, what adventure is this? It was thus, said Turnian, and he told her how it all befell. Verily, lord, said she, what sort of garments are there upon the boy? A mantle of satin, said he. He is then a boy of gentle lineage, she replied. My lord, she said, if thou wilt, I shall have great diversion and mirth. I will call my women unto me, and tell them that I have been pregnant. I will readily grant thee to do this, he answered. And thus did they, and they caused the boy to be baptized, and the ceremony was performed there. And the name which they gave unto him was Grewalt Urin, because what hair was upon his head was as yellow as gold. And they had the boy nursed in the court until he was a year old. And before the year was over he could walk stoutly. And he was larger than a boy of 3 years old, even one of great growth and size. And the boy was nursed the 2nd year, and then he was as large as a child 6 years old. And before the end of the 4th year, he would bribe the grooms to allow him to take the horses to water. My lord, said his wife unto Turnian, where is the colt which thou didst save on the night that thou didst find the boy? I have commanded the grooms of the horses, said he, that they take care of him. Would it not be well, lord, said she, if thou wert to cause him to be broken in, and given to the boy, seeing that on the same night that thou didst find the boy, the colt was foaled and thou didst save him? I will not oppose thee in this matter, said Turnian. I will allow thee to give him the colt. Lord, said she, may heaven reward thee, I will give it him. So the horse was given to the boy. Then she went to the grooms and those who tended the horses, and commanded them to be careful of the horse, so that he might be broken in by the time that the boy could ride him. And while these things were going forward, they heard tidings of Rhiannon and her punishment. And Turnian twrwevi vliant, by reason of the pity that he felt on hearing this story of Rhiannon and her punishment, inquired closely concerning it, until he had heard from many of those who came to his court. Then did Turnian, often lamenting the sad history, ponder within himself, and he looked steadfastly on the boy, and as he looked upon him, it seemed to him that he had never beheld so great a likeness between father and son, as between the boy and Poole the chief of Anwin. Now the semblance of Poole was well known to him, for he had of yore been one of his followers. And thereupon he became grieved for the wrong that he did, in keeping with him a boy whom he knew to be the son of another man. And the first time that he was alone with his wife, he told her that it was not right that they should keep the boy with them, and suffer so excellent a lady as Rhiannon to be punished so greatly on his account, whereas the boy was the son of Poole the chief of Anwin. And Turnian's wife agreed with him, that they should send the boy to Poole. And 3 things, lord, said she, shall we gain thereby: thanks and gifts for releasing Rhiannon from her punishment, and thanks from Poole for nursing his son and restoring him unto him. And thirdly, if the boy is of gentle nature, he will be our foster son, and he will do for us all the good in his power. So it was settled according to this counsel. And no later than the next day was Turnian equipped, and 2 other knights with him. And the boy, as a 4th in their company, went with them upon the horse which Turnian had given him. And they journeyed towards Narberth, and it was not long before they reached that place. And as they drew near to the palace, they beheld Rhiannon sitting beside the horse-block. And when they were opposite to her, Chieftain, said she, go not further thus, I will bear every one of you into the palace, and this is my penance for slaying my own son and devouring him. O fair lady, said Turnian, think not that I will be one to be carried upon thy back. Neither will I, said the boy. Truly, my soul, said Turnian, we will not go. So they went forward to the palace, and there was great joy at their coming. And at the palace a feast was prepared, because Pywl was come back from the confines of Dived. And they went into the hall and washed, and Poole rejoiced to see Turnian. And in this order they sat, Turnian between Poole and Rhiannon, and Turnian's 2 companions on the other side of Poole, with the boy between them. And after meat they began to carouse and to discourse. And Turnian's discourse was concerning the adventure of the mare and the boy, and how he and his wife had nursed and reared the child as their own. "And behold, here is thy son, lady," said Turnian. "And whosoever told that lie concerning thee has done wrong. And when I heard of thy sorrow, I was troubled and grieved. And I believe that there is none of this host who will not perceive that the boy is the son of Pool," said Turnian. "There is none," said they all, "who is not certain thereof." "I declare to heaven," said Rhiannon, "that if this be true, there is indeed an end to my trouble." "Lady," said Penderyn Dived, "well hast thou named thy son Pryderi. 3 And well becomes him the name of Pryderi, son of Pool, chief of Anwin." "Look you," said Rhiannon, "will not his own name become him better?" "What name has he?" asked Penderyn Dived. "Grewalt Urin is the name that we gave him." "Pryderi," said Penderyn, "shall his name be?" "It were more proper," said Pool, "that the boy should take his name from the word his mother spoke when she received the joyful tidings of him. And thus was it arranged." "Turnian," said Pool, "heaven reward thee that thou hast reared the boy up to this time, and, being of gentle lineage, it were fitting that he repay thee for it." "My lord," said Turnian, "it was my wife who nursed him, and there is no one in the world so afflicted as she at parting with him. It were well that he should bear in mind what I and my wife have done for him." "I call heaven to witness," said Pool, "that while I live I will support thee and thy possessions, as long as I am able to preserve my own. And when he shall have power, he will more fitly maintain them than I. And if this counsel be pleasing unto thee, and to my nobles, it shall be that, as thou hast reared him up to the present time, I will give him to be brought up by Penderyn Dived, from henceforth. And you shall be companions, and shall both be foster fathers unto him." "This is good counsel," said they all. So the boy was given to Penderyn Dived, and the nobles of the land were sent with him. And Turnian Twryv Vliant, and his companions, set out for his country, and his possessions with love and gladness. And he went not without being offered the fairest jewels and the fairest horses, and the choicest dogs. But he would take none of them. Thereupon they all remained in their own dominions. And Pryderi, the son of Pool, the chief of Anwin, was brought up carefully as was fit, so that he became the fairest youth and the most comely, and the best skilled in all good games of any in the kingdom. And thus passed years and years, until the end of Pool, the chief of Anwin's life came, and he died. And Pryderi ruled the 7 cantrevs of Dived prosperously, and he was beloved by his people, and by all around him. And at length he added unto them the 3 cantrevs of Istrad Tywee, and the 4 cantrevs of Cardigan, and these were called the 7 cantrevs of Sysilch. And when he made this addition, Pryderi the son of Pool, the chief of Anwin, desired to take a wife. And the wife he chose was Kikva, the daughter of Gwyn Gohoy, the son of Gloy Walt Leiden, the son of Prince Castner, one of the nobles of this island. And thus ends this portion of the Mabinogion.